I think Google is really taking advantage of a lot of people, and I think that's a very serious thing, and it's a very serious charge. I think what Google and what others are doing, if you look at what's going on at Twitter, if you look at what's going on in Facebook, they better be careful, because you can't do that to people. You can't do it. We have literally thousands and thousands of complaints coming in, and you just can't do that. So I think that Google and Twitter and Facebook, they're really treading on very, very troubled territory.
Welcome back to Hardball. That was President Trump this afternoon continuing his attack on Google and other social media companies for what he says is a bias against conservatives. This follows Trump's tweets from this morning, writing, quote, Google search results for Trump news shows only the viewing, reporting of fake news media. In other words, they have it rigged. Google and others are suppressing voices of conservatives and hiding information and news that is good. Google firing back with this statement, quote, when users type queries into the Google search bar, our goal is to make sure they receive the most relevant answers in a matter of seconds. Search is not used to set a political agenda, and we don't bias our results toward any political ideology. For more, joined by our roundtable tonight, Mara Gay, editorial board member for the New York Times, Evan Siegfried, a Republican strategist, and Nick Confessori, a political reporter for the New York Times. Nick, not the first time we've asked this, seeing one of the tweets from the president, but where did this come from? Any idea?
Yes, I do. Look, this is a president who doesn't use computers, email. He is not a tech expert. This is a story emanating from conservative media. There has been a grudge match for a while, that's been brewing, where conservatives believe these platforms are against them and stacking the deck. There is no evidence for it on a systemic basis, but they believe it and they're pushing their case. Plus, we know that the president knows that Google is full of people who supported Hillary Clinton, including Eric Schmidt. And he doesn't like that. He's aware of it and he hates it.
So there is an audience that he's tapping into here with this.
Yeah, there is. First of all, I think the president's claims about Google itself and how its search results come, that's bunk. Search engine optimization is one thing, and he needs to understand that after he understands trade and other important issues. But there is a perception within the conservative community that there is a bias against conservatives throughout Silicon Valley. And let's take Twitter, for example. Twitter was responding to death threats of liberals and liberal friends of mine and immediately responding to them, suspending these accounts. But when it came to me and other conservatives who were opposed to Trump in 2016, getting death threats saying, we're going to come and find you and put you in the oven, put you in a concentration camp, etc., Twitter would send, you file the report with Twitter, you get it back saying there was no violation of terms of service. Oh, so sorry. And then Dana Lash, the spokeswoman for the NRA. I disagree with Dana on several issues, especially on guns, but she went out and had somebody tweet at her, I think your kid should get murdered. Twitter, no violation of their terms of service. And then when, in my case and then Dana's case, we both went to the press. I wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post in 2016 saying, here are all the things that Twitter has done or not done in response to threats. And, and with Dana Lash, the Daily Caller wrote a piece saying this. Instantly, Twitter turned around and said, oh, my God, we've re-reviewed the cases because it's bad PR that motivates them. And I think Jack Dorsey, I'd like to take the moment to invite him to come and sit down and talk about bridging the gap between conservatives and Twitter, because there is this gap, and he can go a long way, and we can hopefully fix this, because while they might not have an actual bias, they certainly are feeding the perception that they are against us, and it's the same with Facebook, who met with prominent conservatives in May 2016. They met with Brent Bozell, Jim DeMint, and they said, we're going to work better, but they haven't made us feel like we're equal.
It's interesting to hear you lay out that case because, Mara, I mean, I feel like, especially since the 2016 campaign, I've heard each side. I've heard folks on the left, I've heard folks on the right looking at social media, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Google, and raising, I mean, certainly right after the 2016 campaign, a lot of folks on the left were saying, hey, look at all this potentially Russian propaganda that made its way onto Facebook. Look at these there's rallies that were actually organized through Facebook. There has been a lot of attention, both sides of the aisle, to the idea of what is fair on social media.
Well, hang on a second. Let's pull back. We have the President of the United States talking about, wanting to intrude on the way Google does its searches, or people are able to search on Google, to privilege information not by its factual substance and not by the quality of information you get, but actually instead to give a false balance between far-right media, in this case, and what he would call mainstream media. I mean, I just want to be clear. There's no false balance here. I mean, this is an issue of false balance. So, as journalists, I'm on the opinion side, but not too long ago, I was a news reporter. My job was not to be a stenographer. My job was not to say, well, he said this and she said this. Donald Trump says the sky is green, but some people say it's blue. That's not our job. Our job is to report the facts. And sometimes the facts don't necessarily acquit one side in the same way they do another. And I think this is a situation where he's upset, the president is upset, because the facts don't look good for his administration right now.
And we are back with the Hardball Roundtable. Mara, tell me something I don't know.
Sure. So New York State actually has a big statewide primary coming up on September 13th, which is a Thursday, not a Tuesday. It's extremely important, not just in New York, but across the country, because the winner of the AG's race may actually end up having to prosecute Trump aides, any of them who are then pardoned by the president.
If New York hadn't confused things enough by splitting their primaries, they move one to Thursday. Couldn't get any more confusing than that. Evan.
We've been seeing a lot of polls showing that millennials are going to be turning out and are excited for the midterms, but people have scoffed at them, saying the young never vote. But we're now seeing it actually happen in action. In Pennsylvania, people under 35 now outnumber people 65 and over on the voter rolls. Additionally, 2/3 of new voter registrations are millennials. And on top of that, millennial Democrats outnumber millennial Republicans by 400,000. And we're seeing the same surges in Arizona, Virginia, and other states throughout the nation.
Scary numbers for Republicans. Nick.
Steve, this attack from the president on Google is just a skirmish in a broader battle over Silicon Valley and how to rein it in and impose some rules on it. The industry is actually working with Trump to craft some new rules that are pro-industry on privacy, but there are also calls some conservatives to impose some more rules on diversity and platforming. So this is really part of a bigger discussion.